Hi guys, how's it going? I'm Enrique and this is Enzyme RTV. Today we're going to go over how to draw a gas mask. Now, I'm going to go over some quick terms. There's scuba, SCBA, and then there's the gas mask. Scuba is self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. That's the thing you use underwater. And then there's self-contained breathing apparatus, which is what firefighters use, where there's a mask and it has oxygen being pumped into it. And then what we're going to go over is the gas mask. What the gas mask does is it doesn't provide oxygen, it actually captures particles. So if someone throws a smoke bomb, it'll kind of protect you from the particles coming into your lungs. So let me go over really quick the overview of this video. First off, I'm going to talk about the parts of a generic gas mask. Then I'm going to go over how to draw an ellipse freehand because that's such an important part to drawing one. Then I'm going to go over two separate drawings. I'm going to go over a pencil drawing and then a pen drawing of a gas mask.
Let's go over some different parts of a generic gas mask. I'm just going to talk about the stuff that you need to learn as an artist. Then you can take those parts and create your own, different version. First off, two lenses. There's the underneath soft lens, which you can actually indicate through drawing. And then there's a lens over that, which is a hard covering lens that's clear. You have the filter connector toward the front. This connects the filter to the mask itself. The filter captures the particles and prevents them from going into your lungs. And then finally, you just have the straps, which strap it around the back of your head. They tighten up.
Okay, so let's go over this first in pen. I think it's really important to learn how to sketch these in different mediums. I think it's kind of vital to it, and it comes up with a different result. So with pen, I'm slowly tracing things in very lightly. That's kind of a big part of it, because with pen, obviously, I can't really erase anything. I don't have that luxury. But that is also going to help me too. When you don't have that luxury of being able to erase, that kind of forces your brain to kind of think of this as more important, and you kind of make less mistakes because of it. So right now, I'm trying to very much get the kind of the major axis of the major and minor axis of my circles, my ellipses. And that's kind of the hardest part about doing the gas mask, especially it being in pen, you know what I mean? You can very easily just throw an ellipse there and you have no clue what's going on. I would say another thing when it comes to using the pen, which is very vital that I don't think people talk about enough, is the kind of angle of your arm. I'm right-handed. So when I shade something or when I do something, when I pull a lot of my strokes to the upper right, being right-handed, it's kind of like, an ellipse, kind of like from my elbow, the axis from my elbow really will pull up to the right. If you're left-handed, it'll be, the opposite. But that is something to take into account. So because of that, you're going to be pulling these strokes that are not very comfortable because of your, just general anatomy, right? Because you're always gonna have that elbow there anchoring. So, you know what I mean? I would, one thing I really push you to do is to turn your paper when you're doing these ellipses. I guess you can train yourself not to do that if you see that as a crutch, but I see that, as not a crutch at all. It's fine, just turn the paper. Or turn your shoulder, whatever it is that you need to do. Because I'm drawing on this sketchbook here, this is the reason I did it on this sketchbook is, for that luxury. Continuing to kind of go in there, I'm slowly starting to darken things out. What I do is I darken the primary steps first. I'll primarily darken, the ellipses first, and I want to see if the general picture is coming together well enough for me to go on next. I won't start with the small details because that wouldn't make any sense at all. Doing the push forward. I'm also putting some of the latches on and things of that nature. This particular gas mask, by the way, this model is, I'd say, very typical. It's a very modern design. As I'm darkening things up, it is pretty important to kind of like figure out where your darks are going to be because they're very graphic images, They're very graphic. They're gonna show the character of the entire mask itself. So I like to darken just certain vital points as well as other things. And you know, like you also got to think of different areas of complexity as opposed to areas of simplicity. The complex areas are gonna be in the places where, you know, the mouth are and the eyes. And the simplistic areas, which kind of let you breathe, they let your eye kind of like relax. This is Pac-Man. Now, imagine Pac-Man was flat, kind of like a coin. The angle at which he turns is the degree of the ellipse that he's made of. The more you turn this, the more extreme the degree of the ellipse will be. This is one of the biggest things you have to learn, and I'm going to go over it with you right now.
One of the biggest things for me was making ellipses. That was one of the biggest difficulties I had in drawing. I enjoyed drawing organic figures like faces, muscles, and things like that, even clothing to some extent. But drawing ellipses seemed so mechanical to me. You know, it seemed like, wow, I need an ellipse guide for this. So I'm going to go over how to draw ellipses freehand. First thing you have to do, and I'll tell you this right off the bat, is loosen your arm. I would say there's no better exercise than to just do it many times. There's muscle memory within your hand, right? You want to build that muscle memory up by doing many ellipses in different angles, different sizes, and different degrees as well. And I'm going to go over that really quick. Now we have the major axis, the minor axis. The major axis is the furthest points on the ellipse. Minor axis is the closest. Major, minor, major, minor. When you're doing ellipses, learn to identify the minor axis because that's going to be the most important. That's going to show you the degree of the ellipse. The major really won't. So I'm going to give you a quick exercise to kind of help you out. One quick exercise. I would draw lines like so. Tornadoes. And what I want you to do, maybe draw a straight line down on each. Make that your minor axis. And as you're doing that, create cylinders up and down the minor axis. And try to keep them within the bounds of this tornado. Don't overthink them. Not every one of them is going to be like amazing. But it will help you kind of build up that muscle that it takes to do that. Let me do these. And make them, like I said, different at different degrees. Oh, that's like a straight up circle. Let me do this really quick. It's just an exercise. Do a lot of these, and you know, you do these to warm up. I do these to warm up throughout my day, just to kind of warm up and get that angle going as well. The more you do this, the better you'll become at it. The less you'll have to warm up. So just keep at it. This is one exercise to try out for yourself.
Okay, so now let's start it in pencil. The nose area where the filter attaches is going to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to put a little bit different view on it. Because I'm putting this different view, the faraway ellipse is going to be, again, on the other side of the head, and it's gonna be a little bit more major of an angle. That is something to really keep in mind, because that is the most important thing, I think, to gas masks. I could ruin the whole thing if you get the ellipses completely wrong. You know, you can kind of get them wrong to a fault, I noticed, and because you're eyeballing this. You know, you're not using an ellipse guide, which I think is the whole point. You know, is a lot of people want to draw without the ellipse guide. If you're a car designer, things of that sort, you need an ellipse guide. You know, you can probably do ellipses great, but you know, probably better than I'll ever do, because you're drawing them all day. But I mean, when you're sketching, just you know, things of this nature, it's a better idea to you know, learn it freehand as well. It's always a good idea to learn it freehand. So right now I'm going really light. I'm going massively light, even though it is with pencil. I do want to build it up slowly. I want to build it up slowly, like the way when you take a picture with a Polaroid camera and you're slowly seeing it develop, you know, in front of your eyes. You know, if you're using an old Polaroid. And you know, I'm kind of using a small pencil right now, forgive me. But I'm continuing to push things the way I did with the pen as well. It's actually very similar to the pen. So as soon as I think of like the cylinders, you have to think of several cylinders. That's another thing that's a little bit harder. It's almost deceivingly hard with a gas mask. You're thinking of more than one cylinder. You're thinking of the cylinder, right? Let's say you're thinking of that filter there on the right. It's the cylinder, but then there's the inner part of that cylinder. So you have to think of that. You have to think in context of that cylinder, and then within the smaller cylinder cylinder shape inside it. You know, so you have to picture how would this look inside of it, you know? So that's kind of, I think, what's a little bit hard about, you know, gas masks in general. And then a lot of people seem to have a lot of trouble with them, I noticed. The straps in general are pretty easy, you know, they strap to the head in a very kind of like, you know, very typical way. One thing to keep in mind while you're strapping those to the head, remember the shape of the skull. And if you have trouble with that, look at some of my other videos. The shape of the skull is something that most people mess up on when they're drawing a regular face portrait, you know, regular head portrait. You know, they tend to make the skull too small. You know, have you ever seen a new artist, and maybe you've done it yourself, I don't know, I think I did it, I'm sure, when I started. When you draw someone's face, they just kind of throw some hair back there. It looks all weird. It looks like a voodoo head, you know. It looks like looks very odd. You know, so like a shrunken skull. So what you should do is always keep in mind that the skull encases the brain. The brain's going to be there, so that's going to be a part of it. This masks are meant to wear on people, and so you need to not cheat them out of their skull. You know what I mean? You're cheating. Don't cheat them. Really put that in there. You know. Think about the back of the skull and how this strap would strap to the back of it as well. I actually recommend getting a real gas mask, whether it be old or new. You can go to an army surplus store and get one, or you could actually, you know, someone that works in construction, they might have a more modern gas mask, you know. So I'm continuing to kind of like throw a little bit of value on here, and I'm throwing the value to kind of separate it, but for the most part, this is good enough. This will kind of serve the purpose of the demo that we need.
Guys, that's our video. Tell us if we missed something, and subscribe if you haven't.